Hi folks, welcome to our new video. Today we'll be talking about Radagast and his attempt to carve out some realm where nature could roam free. But before we get to the actual content, let's talk a little bit about who Radagast the Brown was, what his origins are, and why he was corrupted by nature in his quest. Radagast's original name was Aivendil, which means friend of birds in Quenya. He was a Maya created by Eru Iluvatar before even time began. He served Yavanna, the queen of earth. After the downfall of Númenor, the Valar were more and more concerned with the fate of the peoples of Middle-earth. When Sauron returned as a Dark Lord again, and shadow began to fall on the lands, the Valar summoned a council and decided to send some help to advise the free people. And so Istari were created. Eivendil arrived in Grey Heavens, disguised as an old man, quickly becoming famous for his protection of forests and his zeal for animals. He was never much of a traveler, and so he soon found his home at Rosgobel on the southwestern end of Mirkwood, the last large forest remaining in Middle-earth. Whether he kept watch over Dol Guldur is in doubt, but he helped the White Council, and especially Gandalf and Saruman, using his animal friends, most notably birds, as scouts, spies, and messengers. Overall, the mighty of Middle-earth take Radagast as a weird fellow and maybe a fool, but now it's our time to show them how capable Radagast the Brown really is. Let's start with a short overview of the rules of Middle-earth collectible card game we'll be using to create this fallen Radagast deck. We will be building a deck for a 2-deck game with 30 to 50 resources and an equal number of hazards. A 12 creature minimum is mandatory for everyone, but I like to use an equal number of creatures as other hazards events in my deck. And this will be exactly the case today. Also, we'll use minion agents in the deck, but as I do not use them as agents, I count them as characters to be brought into play at their respective home sites. And also, we will prepare a sideboard of 25 cards to complement our deck. When we have a look at where will our adventures take place, you can see it's more or less between Mirkwood and the Misty Mountains. Of course, we need the White Towers, where we begin our journey, and also Isengard, because it's the closest heaven we have, at least until Radagast himself comes into play and opens up Rosgobel for his companies. The rest of the sites are never too far away from each other or from our main base of operations, as Radagast never was an adventurer himself, nor can we ask much of our companies, who like nothing more than a cover of trees. Now, when we know where we will be operating, let's have a look at what we will start our game with. In other words, what our starting company consists of. We find ourselves at the White Towers with 3 hero and 2 minion characters. None of them is very comfortable being so far from home, but there is no other choice for a fallen wizard than to begin his journey in Arthedain. We have here 3 elves, Celeborn, Legolas, and Haldir, 1 Dunadan, Eradan, and finally 1 woodman, Odoacer. Between them we have all 5 skills there are, which is always an advantage. As minor items I have chosen 2 elven cloaks, because we'll be moving through many a wilderness, and protecting our key characters is important. 3 stage points we get from 2 copies of the Trial of the Voice, and 1 Wizard's Myrmidon card. Our first organization phase won't be overly difficult. We give 1 Trial of the Voice to Celeborn, otherwise we wouldn't be able to use him at all, and he will also receive an Elven Cloak. Another Trial of the Voice goes to Legolas, as his 6th mind must be decreased to 5 in order for him to be playable by a fallen wizard. We will also turn him into a Wizard's Myrmidon, and thus decrease his mind even less. If you want, you can use the Wizard's Myrmidon card on Celeborn. There is actually no reason why not to do so. Just choose whoever you want. Then Haldir gets his own Elven Cloak. And finally, Eradan influences Odoacer. When we have that finished, we can finally move, either to any reachable destination, which is in Anduin Vales or Redhorn Gate, or to Isengard, if we have nothing playable in hand. Now we can have a look at what I have put in the playdeck itself. Let's start with the 10 characters. 2 copies of Fallen Radagast go without saying, that's clear. Then we have 4 hero characters to help us on our way. One of them, Framframson, is maybe the most valuable, as he is the one who should be doing most of the fighting with the creatures, together with Celeborn from the starting company. Then we have Ghan, a 5-minded scout and ranger, and 2 low-minded characters, Orofin and Wako. From minions we have 2 characters, both with low mind, Luitprand and Nine, a dwarf from Dol Guldur, whom we have persuaded to leave the service of a Dark Lord. And finally, there are 4 agents. These you can get into play if you need them and have enough free influence, but none of them is actually needed if everything goes as it should. When we know who will do the work of gathering resources, we can have a look at what the resources actually are. You can see there are 2 factions, Ents of Fangorn and Wood Elves. Both are for 3 measuring points, but worth only 2 for us. But these peoples, if I can use this word, has the same overall mentality and understand that woods and animals need to be protected. Then there are 3 allies, Gwaihir, Radagast's dear birthfriend, Noble Hound and Noble Steed. 1 gold ring, which we will need to test for a magic ring of nature. If we succeed, and it will be carried by a ranger, which shouldn't be hard given the number of ranger characters we have, it becomes very potent in protecting our company. Then there is a bow of the Galadrim. This item we can easily store as soon as we have a chance, unless you play against a ring-rate opponent. Then Hauberk of Bright Mail and Sword of Gondolin to increase our fighting power, even though our strength lies more in avoiding an actual attack than defeating creatures. For that sake, there is also Torque of Use, which gives us another instrument to get out of dangerous situations. And the 1 point giving permanent event is When You Know More, which, if played ideally with Wako, helps others pass the corruption check without being afraid to lose a valuable character. When we look at the non-point giving resource events now, you can see we use all 3 types, Hero, Minion and Fallen Wizards ones. From the Fallen Wizard resources, there is the 3rd copy of the Trowel of the Voice. Without it, it would be impossible to get Taladhan into play, but you can use it on other characters too, just as you feel is the most efficient at the time. But it's the Friend of Secret Things card that is maybe the most important one in this deck. So never discard it if you need to get rid of some stage cards, and you can help it. It has no special use now, but you have to get it into play before the 2nd round of the deck. Then it's essential to play the ends you have in the sideboard. From hero resources, you will need the Test of Lore to test the gold ring. The rest, as well as the minion resources, are a mix of attack cancelling cards, faction play enhancing cards, and others easily usable or discardable cards to help speed up the game tempo. I would point out one of them, Smoke Rings, which can help you get back 1 important resource if you were forced to discard it. For example, the before mentioned Friend of Secret Things, or maybe the Test of Lore, or possibly the Magic Ring of Nature if you discarded it for some reason. Now to the point where we discuss where to play each resource. The sites needed are in alphabetical order for easier orientation. So there is a Bandit Lair for the gold ring, Dimrail Dale for the information resource card, Trandrul's Halls and Welling Hall, each for a faction and a resource to help with the influence check, Eagle's Eyrie for Gwaihir, and Woodman Town for Noble Hound. These are mandatory. The remaining 5 major items can be played at different sites. But what makes this deck unusual and special is multiple usage of Boor Widow site. This site is never discarded, always returned to side deck, and so you can visit it multiple times. If you have Radagast in play and Rosgobel is your heaven, it takes just 1 wilderness to reach this site, and you can safely move there and back again to untap the site for another major item and or noble steed to be played there next turn. In such a way, you can gather all the major items with a little to none effort or danger. Only its location in southern Rovanian may be dangerous, if Smog is a hunt and Doors of Night are in play, but for that reason you have other sites to move to for the time being. When you have Radagast in play and do not have much to do, or are in no great need for the untapped wizard, tap him in the organization phase and get the resources from the sideboard to the discard pile. you will need to do it 3 times to get all 15 resources out of the sideboard. In there are many points to be had, with Great Eagle's faction, second magic ring, and not less than 7 allies: Radagast Blackbird, Gollum, second Noble Hound, and 4 Ents. If you think they are there for you to choose one and play him at Welling Hall, you are quite mistaken, because you can have all 4 of them. For this reason, you played and protected the Friend of Secret Things cards. As soon as you have Radagast in play and exhausted the play deck for the first time, give him a follower and send them to Welling Hall, where Radagast will stay. He can even be there alone if you need, and slowly bring all 4 Ents into play, one after another. If you need to move Radagast away for some time, never forget to send someone to Welling Hall first, as otherwise it would be discarded. And do not forget that hero allies, Radagast controls, have no movement restrictions. You can move him and his Ent band around, using the Ents as very strong characters, which they are, and when Radagast is in his changed shape, using Master of Shapes card, there are not many hazards you should be afraid of. Also in the sideboard are When I Know Anything and Herplore, helping Radagast heal his whole company. Minion Piercing All Shadows helps in case of the opponent using roadblocks, and also Felon Resource Great Patron to get more points for characters in play. An Untimely Brood is upon your consideration, as it is not needed, but can help if you had to discard your non-unique allies. Regarding the playing of the sideboard resources, there is nothing difficult in considering where to play each one, apart from the 4 Ents, which we have already discussed. When I Know Anything at Dibrendale, Gollum in Moria, the Great Eagles at Eagle's Eyrie, using one or the other influence helping resource, or maybe both if you have them in hand together. Noble Hound in Woodman Town, and Radagast Blackbird when you are in a heaven. Because as a fallen wizard you will never have a chance to have as many points as a wizard can, monitor the opponent all the time, and when the time is ripe, end the game, even if you still have some points left in the deck. But the quickness in which you can gather all your resources should give you the opportunity to end the game when you are ahead in points. Now, when we have finished with the resources, let's see which hazards we will play today. For this deck, I have prepared a mixed hazard deck, consisting of unconceptional creatures and roadblocks. The creatures we will play today are not used in any specialized hazard deck, and do not have many power-enhancing hazard events available. But at least their individual strength is quite high, as is their playability. And that is the reason why we will play these instead of, for example, wolves and spiders. Because we need to get rid of the cards from hand quickly, in order to be able to get the point-giving cards quicker than opponent, and so give us a chance to win. But our hazards creatures can do some damage and wreak havoc into opponent's plans, nevertheless. We have here one Nazgul, Dwarf, to be played as a permanent, 3 copies of a giant card, 3 of Thunder's Companion, and that's all there is for giants. From Awakened Plants we have 2 Hurons and 2 Old Man Willows, 3 Slayers and 1 copy of Pickerman, and also some animals join the mix: Morgul Rats, Knicker Breakers, and 3 times Watcher in the Water, considerably the best creature from this deck. As there are no power-enhancing events in the hazard deck, simply play whichever creature you can, and if you have no eminent use for one, discard it. There is no sense in keeping anything in hand, because there is no available combo coming. Regarding the hazard events, as mentioned before, this deck is constructed on annoying and delaying the opponent rather than destroying him. So there are 3 types of hazard cards here: roadblocks, Foul Fumes, Longwinter, River, and Snowstorm, special hazards against fallen wizards. These you can change for other when you play a wizard or a ring raid. These are Blind to the West, Hard Grown Cold, and Ire of the East. And finally, 3 general hazards that shouldn't be omitted from any hazard deck: an Unexpected Outpost, Aware of Their Ways, and of course, Doors of Night. Here again my advice is to use whichever hazard you can right away. Others you can discard. None of them is vital for the game plan, as all can be returned into play with the use of the unexpected outposts. Of course, it's good to keep Doors of Night in play for the full usage of the road blocking cards, but also consider your own moves, as this card can sometimes hurt you more than your opponent. In the sideboard, we again have 5 more creatures and 5 more hazard events. The 5 creature cards consist of another copies of Huron, Pukelman and Knickerbreakers, with 2 new ones to be used if your opponent moves more in coastal seas, that's for the fell turtle, or in the far south, that's what Mumak is here for. The hazard events consist of 3 more anti-fallen wizard cards and 2 special cards for some more fun. Reluctant Final Parting may force your opponent to discard his ally. If you play it right and from the beginning focus on killing or discarding your opponent's allies, you can get into a situation when you double your own ally points at the end of the game because your opponent has none ally at all. At last, but not least, is the Nature's Revenge card. Tell me, can you play a Fallen Radagast without this card? I don't think so. When you do not have enough hazards playable, halve your opponent's hazard limit for a turn and bring these into the discard pile. You can get them into the play deck simply by using the unexpected outpost cards. And that is all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you would consider giving me a like and maybe subscribing to the channel, your help will be very much appreciated. Next time we will take to the sea and visit the coastal areas of Middle-earth. By then you can leave me comments below. I'll do my best to answer all your questions. And if you are looking for any new ideas regarding what deck to construct, you can have a look at my short videos about single characters and their adventures. Maybe you will find an inspiration there. See you next time.